You're watching Global Eye. US President Donald Trump hosted Pakistani Field Marshal General Munir at the White House earlier this week. The meeting came less than a day after Prime Minister Modi had a phone call with Trump to clarify that no discussions were held with US on mediation or trade during Operation Sindoor. That's not all. Trump, while addressing the media, had claimed yet again that he had helped end the war between the two nuclear nations. I spoke with ex-Indian envoy to Iran, D.P. Srivastav, to get a sense of the American playbook when it came to India and also Pakistan's larger game plan and military doctrine. Srivastav was posted in Karachi in the 90s. He has recently authored a book called Pakistan, Ideologies, Strategies and Interests. His book traces the interpretation of ideology and elite interest in the making of Pakistan's domestic and foreign policy. I started by asking him to weigh in on the meeting between US President Donald Trump and Pakistan Army Chief Munir at the White House.
The luncheon meeting with the US president is being projected by both sides in the context of recent hostilities between India and Pakistan. But to understand it, you have to bear in mind the West Asian context. And let's go back a month. General Kurilla, the head of the US Central Command, in a testimony to US Senate, described Pakistan about a month ago as a useful ally in the fight against terrorism. Now, this is a very curious statement. America exited Afghanistan 4 years ago. There has been no recent catch of big terrorist figures, and they abound in Pakistan in recent years. So what explains this, this heartwarming commendation to Pakistan? I think you have to look at the developing situation in West Asia. Pakistan is an immediate neighbor of Iran. In case of hostilities or military action against that country, it can be very useful. And indeed, perhaps this has been in the works for some time, because you would recall then that in the midst of Operation Sindoor, IMF announced a fresh commitment of $1.5 billion to Pakistan under Climate Resilience Fund. This was in addition to release of a tranche of $1 billion under the existing commitment of $7 billion IMF undertook last year. This was not exactly a good signal to a country indulging in terrorism, but the current situation in Iran, if you work backwards, explains this generosity. Pakistan was being brought on board for any contingency that might arise, and of course Pakistan has always fished in troubled waters, and it is in deep economic trouble. It needs money, and it has already delivered. It's not a coincidence that on 15th June, one day after Israeli-Iranian war began, Pakistan closed its borders with Iran, except for return of Pakistani nationals. Now, you keep in mind the historical context. In 1965, during India-Pakistan war, Iran under Shah had provided Pakistan Air Force sanctuaries. And today, Pakistan has closed the doors, shut in Iran's face. So obviously, it has to be paid for services rendered.
Absolutely.
And that explains the context of this rare honor of being invited to the White House for an army chief.
Ambassador Srivastav, we'd also like to ask you about General Munir's position right now in Pakistan and why Pakistan went in for that terror attack against India. You've said in your book, and you've quoted General Zia-ul-Haq to say the professional soldier in a Muslim army pursuing the goal of a Muslim state cannot become a professional if he does not take on the color of Allah in all his activities. Could you give us a sense of what General Munir is now trying to achieve?
Let me first give you the historical context. You quoted from a book by Brigadier Malik, which is prescribed reading in Staff College Beta. And General Zia wrote the introduction. Brigadier Malik in this book said that terror is not a means to achieve an end. Terror is an end in itself. And this was the book which was being commended by General Zia. And mark General Zia's words, he was not talking about a Pakistani soldier. He was talking about a Muslim soldier in the service of an Islamic state. And that is the philosophy which also inspires General Munir. He said about a couple of months back in his speech that he does not recognize anyone as Pakistani who does not accept Islam and Constitution. So religion obviously in his mind plays a larger role than the country's constitution. And he, in this 16th April speech, which was just a week before the Pahalgam terror attack, referred to ideology of Pakistan. He referred to two-nation theory. He said that Kashmir is the jugular vein of Pakistan. Now, the last two statements, there's nothing new. This was originally, these words were spoken by Jinnah, and it has been part of Pakistan's official creed since then. But, when you say that Kashmir is the jugular vein of Pakistan, it reflects Pakistan's obsessions with its own interests, not with the Kashmiri people. In the same speech, General Munir went on about the Baloch struggle.
Right.
And he said that, Pakistan would not allow it to succeed. So the ideology of Pakistan tries to impose a homogeneous religious identity on a diverse people and does not recognize the distinct national or linguistic identities of its people. And that is the genesis of the ongoing trouble in Balochistan. It tells you something about General Munir's mindset. And most interestingly, in the same speech he quoted Iqbal, he also made a reference to Palestine situation and described Israel as a Zionist state. Right. And today, he's being feted around in White House. And obviously the current context which is being played out in West Asia is a pointer of things to come.
Okay. Ambassador Srivastav, you've also spoken about how Pakistan's economy has been in shambles. There is an entire chapter in your book dedicated to the Pakistan economy, and you've also quoted Ishrat Hussain, former governor of State Bank of Pakistan, to say Pakistan has been a laggard in South Asia, facing episodes of boom and busts. The country has approached IMF for meeting balance of payment crisis 22 times in 30 years. Considering that the economy of Pakistan is in such a precarious situation, why do they continue going after Kashmir as a goal? How does this serve their national interest? You've also noted in your book that India is not a threat to Pakistan. We are not wanting to attack Pakistan, but Pakistan is constantly targeting India with terror, is constantly eyeing Kashmir at the cost of their own economy. Why is that?
It's a very pertinent question. Kashmir is an ideological issue for Pakistan, and this is reflected in the slogan that Kashmir is the unfinished agenda of partition. This has nothing to do with, the aspirations of Kashmiri people. It goes back to the two-nation theory. Now, this obsession with Kashmir has impoverished Pakistan, diverted most of its budget to military purposes. In his first budget presented by Jinnah in 1947, he devoted 70% of the budget to defense. And that situation continues in the recent budget, which was presented on 10th June. The army's budget, the defense budget has been increased by 17%, while the overall budget size has been slashed by 7%. And the contrast becomes even more stark when you consider that the development budget has been slashed to half. Now, the sum total of Pakistan's military budget and the debt service obligations exceeds Pakistani federal government's share of revenues, which means, in other words, that for rest of the government, that is other than debt service payment and defense, the government has to be run on fresh loans. How precarious is Pakistan's economic situation can be understood from the fact that it has reserves of foreign exchange reserves of $11 billion. This has been made possible because gesture by friendly countries to roll over Pakistani debts amounting to $16 billion, which had fallen due this year. So if those debts are called, Pakistan would immediately go into default. But despite this precarious situation, almost like it's an addiction, and it serves Pakistani military's corporate interests. It serves, their sense that they are the ultimate, the custodian of the ideology of Pakistan, not just its frontiers.
Right. My final question to you, sir, is about the nuclear angle. Pakistan, as you said in your book, is developing tactical nuclear weapons and has now embarked on a full-spectrum deterrence. Considering that the threat of a nuclear war in the region is very real with what's happening between Israel and Iran, what do you think Pakistan's designs are likely to be, and how should India now prepare for the future? That would be my final question to you.
Let me point out two very odd things about Pakistan's nuclear policy. It has a first-use policy. In theory, that is also the case with much of the West, with NATO, with a difference that Pakistan combines first-use policy with what it calls a territorial dispute. In Europe, NATO and other EU countries, as well as, Soviet Union on the other side of political divide, agreed under Helsinki Accord that it will not use force to change borders. So Pakistan, by combining first use with territorial dispute, has lowered the threshold of use of nuclear weapons and made it more likely. Now, the second part is that nuclear weapons are supposed to be weapons of last resort. In every crisis, Pakistan flashes it right in the beginning to draw international attention. So this again lowers the threshold. Now, let me just touch on one point about recent Operation Sindoor. There was a statement by Pakistani ambassador to Germany before Operation Sindoor about use of nuclear weapons and so on. But once the operation got going, there was no such threat. Now, this really means something. It means that Pakistan's nuclear bluff has been called. Pakistan has traditionally used to hold out the threat of nuclear escalation to deter India's conventional strike against its sub-conventional attack. This is not going to happen in future. Coming back to, the Iran-Israel thing, there was Pakistani defense minister has made it clear that Pakistani nukes are for Pakistan's interests. So that is not going to happen. But the fact remains that in the past, it is proliferation of nuclear technology by Pakistan to Iran in early 90s, to Libya again in the 90s, and to North Korea, which has created this headache for the international community and the West, which is now mollycoddling Pakistan.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Global Eye. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to CNBC-TV18. News continues on the other side.